The distress signal came through the Deep Space Communication Array at exactly 1427 Galactic Standard Time. Communications Officer Zarath of the Kalani Exploration Vessel. Bright Dawn had been monitoring the frequencies for weeks as they traveled through the Outer Rim territories. Her 4 delicate tentacles danced across the bio-neural interface as she decoded the message. What she found made her chitinous exoskeleton click with alarm. "Captain Veltar!" she called across the bridge, her melodic voice carrying the urgent harmonics of distress. "I'm receiving a priority distress beacon from the Thorian system." Captain Veltar's crystalline form shimmered as he moved from his meditation alcove to the communications station. The Kalani were an ancient race, one of the founding members of the Galactic Cooperative Council. They had explored the stars for over 10,000 years, establishing trade routes and maintaining peace between the hundreds of species that made up civilized space. "Display the message," Veltar commanded, his voice creating small vibrations in the crystalline formations that served as the ship's primary computing matrix. The holographic display materialized above the communication console, showing a 3-dimensional map of the Thorian system. Red warning indicators pulsed around the 4th planet, Thoria Prime, home to nearly 50 million Thorian civilians. "The message is from Governor Kethryn of Thoria Prime," Zarath explained, her tentacles continuing to work the controls. "He's reporting that raiders have taken control of the orbital defense platforms. They're demanding tribute and threatening to bombard population centers if their demands aren't met." Veltar's crystal body darkened, a sign of deep concern among his people. "Who are these raiders? Do we have any intelligence on their capabilities?" According to the transmission, they call themselves the Crimson Fleet. The governor estimates they have at least 30 vessels, including several heavy cruisers. The Thorians only have their orbital platforms and a handful of patrol boats. They're completely outmatched. The bridge fell silent except for the gentle humming of the ship's biomechanical systems. The Thorians were a peaceful species, barely beyond their own star system in terms of exploration. They were farmers and artists, known throughout the galaxy for their beautiful sculpture gardens and exotic fruits. They had no military to speak of, having relied on the Cooperative Council's peace treaties for protection. "How long until the raiders' deadline?" Veltar asked. 72 hours, Captain, but—" Zarath hesitated, her tentacles curling with uncertainty. "But what, Communications Officer?" "The nearest Cooperative Council fleet is 4 days away at maximum speed. Even if we transmitted the distress call immediately, they couldn't arrive in time. The Thorians will be defenseless when the deadline expires." Captain Veltar moved to the center of the bridge, his crystalline form refracting the soft blue light of the command console. He had commanded the Bright Dawn for over 3 centuries, and in all that time, he had never encountered a situation quite like this. The Cooperative Council's charter required all member species to render aid to those in distress, but they simply didn't have the time or resources to mount a proper response. "Sir," came a voice from the navigation station. It was Navigator Quintal, a young Kalani who had only recently joined the crew. "There is one possibility." All eyes turned to the navigator. "Speak," Veltar commanded. "The Sol system is only 18 hours away at maximum hyperspace velocity. According to our databases, the humans recently achieved faster-than-light travel and have been accepted as provisional members of the Council. They've been requesting opportunities to prove themselves as reliable allies." A ripple of uncertainty passed through the bridge crew. The humans were newcomers to galactic civilization, having only made first contact 15 years earlier. They came from a world that the galactic community had classified as a Class 3 death world, a planet so hostile that most civilized species couldn't understand how intelligent life could have evolved there at all. Earth, as the humans called their homeworld, was a nightmare of active volcanism, crushing gravity, violent weather systems, and aggressive predators. The water alone, which covered most of the planet's surface, was so chemically reactive that it would be lethal to most galactic species. The humans not only survived on this world, but thrived, developing technology and space travel despite the constant environmental challenges. The humans, Veltar mused, his crystal form shifting through several color spectrums as he processed the information. They are unusual. That was an understatement. When the humans had first been contacted, the galactic community had expected to find a primitive species barely capable of interplanetary travel. Instead, they found a civilization that had already mapped their entire star system and was aggressively expanding into space, despite having achieved faster-than-light travel only recently. Even more surprising was their biology. Humans were bipedal carbon-based life forms, but they were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. They consumed water as a primary biological necessity, something that would kill most other species. They thrived in oxygen-rich atmospheres that would be explosive to others. Their homeworld's gravity was nearly twice what most civilized species considered normal. But perhaps most disturbing of all was their psychology. Where most species had evolved cooperation and peaceful coexistence as survival traits, humans had evolved as persistence predators. They didn't just hunt other creatures, they pursued them relentlessly across vast distances until their prey collapsed from exhaustion. This same psychological drive had apparently carried over into their approach to problem-solving and space exploration. "Sir," Quintal continued, "according to the records from the Council integration meetings, the human delegation specifically requested opportunities to participate in humanitarian missions. They said their species was eager to contribute to galactic peace and stability." Zarath's tentacles rippled with concern. "Captain, are we certain this is wise? The humans are still largely unknown to us. We don't even know what kind of military capabilities they possess. The Council integration report mentioned that they have some kind of space fleet," Veltar replied. "And given their unique evolution, they might be better equipped to handle armed raiders than a typical cooperative response team." The captain made his decision. "Zarath, open a communication channel to the Sol system. Priority diplomatic frequency. Navigator, plot a course for the Thorian system at maximum speed. We'll rendezvous with any human response there." As Zarath worked to establish the long-range communication link, the bridge crew exchanged uncertain glances. They were about to invite Earth's predators to help solve their crisis. None of them could predict what would happen next. The communication array finally locked onto the Sol system's primary communication satellite. Zarath nodded to her captain, who moved to the center of the bridge and activated the holographic recording system. "This is Captain Veltar of the Kalani vessel, Bright Dawn, broadcasting on Galactic Cooperative Council Frequency 77 Alpha. We are transmitting to the human homeworld of Earth regarding an urgent humanitarian crisis in the Thorian system. 50 million innocent civilians are under threat from armed raiders. The nearest Council fleet cannot respond in time. We formally request human assistance under Article 12 of the Cooperative Council Charter. Time is critical. Please respond immediately." The message would take several minutes to reach Earth, even at hyperspace communication speeds. While they waited, Veltar ordered the ship to begin acceleration toward the Thorian system. Whatever the humans decided to send, they would need to coordinate with the Bright Dawn for intelligence and navigation data. 23 minutes later, Zarath's communication board lit up with an incoming transmission. "Captain, we're receiving a response from Sol system. It's coming from Mars orbit?" "Mars? That's their second planet, correct? Put it through." The holographic display flickered to life, showing the image of a human male in what appeared to be some kind of uniform. His species' characteristic pink-tan skin and bilateral symmetry were still strange to see, even after years of diplomatic contact. What struck Veltar most was the human's eyes. They were focused forward, like a predator's, not positioned for wide-angle awareness like most prey species. Captain Veltar, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Command. We've received your distress call regarding the situation in the Thorian system. 50 million civilians under threat from raiders, correct? That is correct, Admiral Chen. The raiders call themselves the Crimson Fleet and possess at least 30 vessels. The Thorians have no military defense capability. We are requesting any assistance your people can provide. The human female's expression changed in a way that Veltar found difficult to interpret. Her lips curved upward, but something about the expression didn't seem entirely friendly. Captain, how many ships are you expecting us to send? The question puzzled Veltar. Any assistance would be appreciated, Admiral. Even a single vessel could help with evacuation efforts or provide additional firepower to deter the raiders. I see. Captain, can you confirm that you're requesting military intervention under Article 12 of the Council Charter? Confirmed, Admiral. We are formally requesting human military assistance to protect Thorian civilians from unlawful attack. There was a pause in the transmission. When Admiral Chen spoke again, her voice had a quality that made several of the bridge crew unconsciously step backward. Captain Veltar, you're about to learn something important about humans. When someone threatens innocent people and asks for our help, we don't send a ship. We send a fleet. Terra Command is dispatching the 3rd Battle Group to your location. They'll be there in 16 hours. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Bright Dawn in stunned silence. Did she say Battle Group? Quintal whispered. Zarath was frantically working her console, accessing the human military database that had been provided during Council integration. Her tentacles suddenly went rigid. Captain, according to these files, a human battle group consists of 12 heavy cruisers, 36 destroyers, 8 carriers, and over 200 fighter craft, plus support vessels. Captain Veltar's crystalline form flickered through several alarmed color patterns. They're sending nearly 300 ships? That's not all, sir, Zarath continued, her voice barely above a whisper. This database indicates that humans classify their battle groups as expeditionary peacekeeping forces. For major conflicts, they deploy something called a war fleet. The bridge crew stared at each other in growing alarm. They had asked for help against 30 raiders. The humans were sending an armada. As the Bright Dawn accelerated toward the Thorian system, Captain Veltar began to wonder if they had just made the situation much, much worse. But there was no turning back now. In 16 hours, the galaxy would see what happened when Earth's predators decided to protect their neighbors. The Thorians had asked for help. They were about to get much more than they bargained for. The first sign something was wrong came when every sensor aboard the Bright Dawn started screaming simultaneously. Zarath's tentacles moved frantically across her console as readings poured in faster than she could process them. Captain, I'm detecting massive hyperspace distortions approaching the system. Multiple contacts, dozens, no hundreds of contacts. Captain Veltar rushed to the sensor station, his crystalline form crackling with electrical discharge, a sure sign of extreme stress. Show me the tactical display. The holographic projector struggled to accommodate the sheer number of contacts materializing at the edge of the Thorian system. Red dots appeared by the dozens, then by the hundreds, spreading across the display like a plague of angry stars. By the eternal crystal, Veltar breathed. How many ships is that? Navigator Quintal was working frantically at his station. Initial count shows 347 vessels, Captain, and they're still arriving. The bridge fell silent, except for the increasingly urgent beeping of proximity alarms. Even the Crimson Fleet raiders, who had been bombarding Thoria Prime's outer settlements, seemed to have paused their attack as the massive human fleet emerged from hyperspace. Sir, Zarath called out, her voice tight with disbelief. "I'm receiving an identification beacon from the lead vessel. It's the UES Indomitable, flagship of the Human Third Battle Group. Admiral Chen is requesting permission to come aboard." Veltar's form shifted through several color spectrums as he processed this information. In all his centuries of command, he had never encountered a military response on this scale. The humans had sent what appeared to be enough firepower to conquer half the Rim territories. "Grant permission for the Admiral to board, and prepare the formal reception chamber. Something tells me this conversation is going to be very important." 20 minutes later, Captain Veltar found himself face-to-face with Admiral Sarah Chen in the Bright Dawn's diplomatic meeting space. The human was shorter than most species he had dealt with, but there was something about her presence that filled the room. Her eyes moved constantly, assessing everything around her with the intensity of a natural predator. "Captain Veltar," Admiral Chen said, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. "Thank you for the distress call. We came as soon as we received your message." Veltar cautiously extended one of his crystalline appendages to complete the greeting. "Admiral, I must admit, we were not expecting quite so extensive a response to our request for assistance." The human's expression changed in that peculiar way Veltar had noticed before. Her lips curved upward, but her eyes remained hard and focused. "Captain, you said 50 million civilians were in danger. In human culture, that constitutes what we call a big damn problem. We brought an appropriately sized solution. But Admiral, the raiders only have 30 ships. Your fleet could destroy them 100 times over." "Could we?" Admiral Chen activated a portable holographic display showing the current positions of all vessels in the system. "Let me walk you through what we're seeing here, Captain. First, you've got 30 raider vessels, correct? But our scans show they're not just pirates. They're using military-grade shields and weapons. Someone supplied them with serious hardware." Veltar studied the display. He had to admit, the human analysis was more detailed than anything his own sensors had provided. "What are you suggesting?" "We ran the ship configurations through our databases. These vessels match the design signatures of the Hegemony Syndicate, a criminal organization that's been operating in 17 different sectors. They've got backing, Captain. This isn't just a random raid. This is a testing ground." The implications hit Veltar like a plasma burst. Testing ground? For what? For how the Galactic Council responds to threats against member worlds. They hit a peaceful agricultural world, make demands, see what kind of resistance shows up. If the response is weak, they escalate. Hit bigger targets. More valuable worlds. Admiral Chen's expression grew even more serious. "The Thorians weren't the real target, Captain. They were bait." Zarath, who had been monitoring communications from the bridge, suddenly materialized via holographic projection. "Captain, the raiders are transmitting on all frequencies. They're surrendering, sir." Admiral Chen turned toward the projection. "They're what?" "The Crimson Fleet is requesting immediate parley. They're powering down their weapons and requesting safe passage out of the system. Their leader wants to negotiate directly with whoever is in command of what he called the Earth Armada." Veltar felt a deep vibration run through his crystalline form, the equivalent of nervous laughter. "Admiral, it appears your appropriately sized solution has achieved the desired effect without firing a shot." But Admiral Chen didn't look pleased. In fact, she looked more concerned than before. "That's exactly the problem, Captain. Pirates and raiders don't surrender that easily, especially not syndicate operations." She activated her communication device. "Chen to Fleet Command. Maintain full battle readiness. Something's not right here." As if summoned by her words, alarms began sounding throughout the bright dawn. Zarath's projection flickered with urgency. "Captain, new contacts, massive hyperspace signatures approaching from galactic north. I count at least 60 vessels, larger than anything in the raider fleet." Admiral Chen's expression transformed entirely. Gone was any trace of the diplomatic commander. What remained was something that made Veltar instinctively step backward. Fleet Tactical. This is Admiral Chen. Battle stations. All vessels prepare for combat. Looks like the real enemy just showed up. The holographic display updated to show the new arrivals. These weren't the cobbled-together vessels of the Crimson Fleet. These were sleek, purpose-built warships with energy signatures that dwarfed anything in the human fleet. Hegemony Syndicate Battle Fleet, Admiral Chen identified grimly. They were waiting to see what kind of response the Council would send. Now they know. But Admiral, Veltar protested, even with your fleet, you're outnumbered. Those ships are massive. Surely the logical response would be to withdraw and call for reinforcements. Admiral Chen looked at him with an expression that would have been perfectly at home on one of Earth's ancient predators. Captain, you're thinking like someone who fights to survive. Humans fight to win. There's a difference. She activated her fleet communications. All vessels, this is Admiral Chen. We have 50 million civilians depending on us and hostile forces that outgun us 2-1. I'd say those are pretty fair odds. There was a pause, and when she spoke again, her voice carried across every human ship in the system. Remember, people, they asked for help. Let's show them what that means. The response from the human fleet was unlike anything Veltar had ever experienced. Instead of the disciplined military acknowledgments he expected, what came back sounded like celebration. Voices shouting with enthusiasm, laughter, even what sounded like music from several vessels. Are your people enjoying this? Veltar asked in bewilderment. Captain, we're from Earth. We evolved as persistence predators on a world that tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. When we see a fight this big to protect innocent people, Admiral Chen's smile was absolutely feral. This is what we live for. The Syndicate fleet began deploying into attack formation, their massive vessels moving with ominous precision. Each ship was easily 3 times the size of the largest human vessel, bristling with weapons that could crack a planet's crust. But the humans weren't deploying in any formation Veltar recognized from his studies of military tactics. Instead of the ordered battle lines preferred by most galactic civilizations, they seemed to be dispersing, ships breaking away from the main group, moving in seemingly random patterns. Admiral, your fleet appears to be scattering. Is this a retreat? Retreat? Admiral Chen laughed, a sound that raised alarming harmonics in Veltar's crystal matrix. Captain, we're not retreating. We're surrounding them. The tactical display confirmed her words. While the Syndicate fleet moved in their traditional formation, the human vessels were using their superior speed and maneuverability to envelop the enemy force from all sides. It was like watching a pack of Earth's legendary wolves hunt a much larger predator. Impossible, Veltar murmured. They're outnumbered and outgunned. How can they possibly... His words were cut off as the human fleet opened fire. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. The humans didn't engage in the traditional exchange of long-range bombardment that characterized most space battles. Instead, they did something that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They got close. Human fighters, vessels so small they barely registered on sensors, dove straight into the Syndicate formation. Destroyers followed, weaving between the massive enemy ships like predatory fish through a school of prey. The larger human vessels coordinated their fire with surgical precision, targeting not the enemy ship's weapons or shields, but their engines and navigation systems. It wasn't destruction they were after. It was paralysis. Within minutes, half the Syndicate fleet was dead in space, unable to maneuver or retreat. The humans had achieved what every military theorist said was impossible. They had successfully engaged a superior force and neutralized them without massive casualties on either side. The remaining Syndicate vessels, seeing their companions helpless, began broadcasting surrender signals on all frequencies. Admiral Chen stood in the center of the Bright Dawn's bridge, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. Fleet Command, this is Admiral Chen. Secure all enemy vessels. Prepare boarding parties for evidence collection. And someone get me a comlink to Earth Command. They're going to want a full report on this Syndicate operation. Captain Veltar floated in stunned silence, trying to process what he had just witnessed. His people had asked the humans for help defending 50 million civilians. In response, Earth had sent enough firepower to conquer a sector, used it to capture an entire criminal fleet without destroying them, and uncovered what appeared to be a major threat to galactic security. Admiral, he finally managed to say, this was not what we expected when we requested assistance. Admiral Chen turned to him, her expression returning to something resembling diplomatic normalcy. Captain, you have to understand something about humans. We don't do anything small. When we explore, we map entire star systems. When we build cities that reach into the sky. And when someone threatens innocent people and asks for our help, she gestured toward the tactical display, where human vessels were efficiently securing the captured Syndicate fleet. We bring everything we've got. Zarath's projection reappeared, her tentacles vibrating with excitement. Captain, we're receiving transmissions from Thoria Prime. Governor Kethrin is requesting permission to address Admiral Chen directly. The entire planetary government wants to formally thank the human fleet. Of course, Admiral Chen replied. But first, we need to figure out how deep this Syndicate operation goes. Captain Veltar, we're going to need your people to help us trace their supply lines and identify their other targets. This was just the beginning. As Veltar looked out at the hundreds of human vessels now swarming through the Thorian system, coordinating rescue operations and intelligence gathering with military efficiency, he began to understand something profound about Earth's newest members of the Galactic Council. The humans hadn't just responded to their call for help. They had turned it into the opening move of what appeared to be a much larger campaign against organized crime in the Outer Rim territories. The Thorians had asked for protection from 30 raiders. Instead, they had accidentally triggered what looked like the start of the most comprehensive anti-piracy operation in galactic history. And the humans were just getting started. 3 weeks after the Battle of Thoria Prime, as the galactic media had dubbed it, Captain Veltar found himself in the last place he had ever expected to be, sitting in a conference room aboard the Human Orbital Command Station above Earth. The view through the transparent aluminum windows was breathtaking and terrifying in equal measure. Earth hung below them, a blue and white marble swirled with violent storm systems and blazing with volcanic activity. Even from orbit, Veltar could see evidence of the massive industrial complexes that covered entire continents, while city lights created geometric patterns across the nightside surface. It was beautiful, dynamic, and utterly hostile to most forms of life in the galaxy. Captain Veltar, Admiral Chen said as she entered the conference room, carrying what appeared to be several data tablets and a steaming cup of that caustic liquid humans called coffee. Thank you for making the journey to Sol system. I know it's not exactly a comfortable environment for your people. That was an understatement. The colony had required extensive environmental modifications just to survive on the human station. The gravity was crushing, the atmosphere was explosive, and the water that humans consumed casually would have dissolved Veltar's crystalline matrix in minutes. Even the background radiation from Earth's natural magnetic field interfered with his people's bioelectrical systems. The journey was educational, Admiral, Veltar replied diplomatically. Though I confess I still don't fully understand why you requested this meeting in person rather than via hyperspace communication. Admiral Chen settled into her chair, a piece of furniture that would have been considered a torture device by most galactic species due to its rigid construction and complete lack of environmental adaptation. Because, Captain, what we've discovered from the Syndicate data cores is something that the Council needs to hear from someone they trust. And after Thoria Prime, you're one of the few non-human witnesses to what we're really capable of. She activated the holographic display in the center of the table, and immediately the room filled with a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red indicators pulsed at hundreds of locations across multiple sectors. This is what we found when we cracked the Syndicate's encrypted databases. They weren't just running random piracy operations, Captain. They were conducting systematic intelligence gathering on Council defense capabilities. Every major agricultural world, every trade hub, every strategic resource location. They've been mapping our weaknesses for over 5 years. Veltar's crystalline form darkened with alarm. 5 years? But that means they've been planning this since before humanity joined the Council. Exactly. And look at this. The display zoomed in on a section of space near the galactic core. They've been building something. We estimate at least 2,000 ships all hidden in a rogue planet system that doesn't appear on any Council charts. This wasn't going to be raiding, Captain. This was preparation for invasion. The implications struck Veltar like a plasma discharge. The Thorian raid was a test. They wanted to see how quickly the Council could respond to threats against member worlds, what kind of firepower we could bring to bear, and how effectively we could coordinate between species. Admiral Chen leaned forward, her predator's eyes intense. Based on historical Council response times, they expected either no response at all, or maybe a single diplomatic vessel that would arrive days too late. Instead, they got a human battle group that arrived in 16 hours and brought enough firepower to level their entire operation. More than that, Captain. They got a demonstration of what Earth considers a routine humanitarian response. What we sent to Thoria Prime wasn't even 1% of our total fleet capacity. Veltar felt his bioelectrical field fluctuate with shock. 1%? But Admiral, you deployed over 300 vessels. Earth has 47 battle groups, Captain, plus reserve fleets, system defense forces, and rapid response squadrons. When we told you we don't do anything small, we weren't exaggerating. Admiral Chen manipulated the holographic controls, and the display shifted to show the Sol system. Earth currently maintains active patrol fleets in 36 different sectors, with standing orders to respond to any threats against Council members. The display showed human vessels scattered throughout known space, far more than Veltar had realized. They weren't just explorers or traders. They were an active military presence protecting trade routes and monitoring for threats. This is why you wanted me here, Veltar realized. The Council doesn't know about any of this. The Council knows we have a space fleet. They don't know the scale of our operations because nobody ever asked. We've been quietly providing security for trade convoys, investigating piracy reports, and gathering intelligence on threats to galactic stability for over a decade. We just never made formal reports because we were still considered provisional members. Admiral Chen stood and moved to the window, looking out at Earth's chaotic but vibrant surface. Captain, humanity spent most of our evolutionary history fighting for survival on a world that actively tried to kill us. When we finally reached the stars, we didn't stop fighting. We just changed what we were fighting for. Instead of fighting the environment for our own survival, we started fighting threats to protect others. But the Council has protocols for military operations, Veltar protested. Formal procedures for coordinating defense responses between member species. You can't just what? Can't just patrol our own trade routes? Can't just investigate threats to our allies? Can't just respond when someone calls for help? Admiral Chen turned back to face him, and her expression was both amused and slightly dangerous. Captain, the Council protocols assume that military responses take days or weeks to coordinate. They assume limited resources and cautious engagement rules. They don't account for a species that considers someone threatened innocent people to be sufficient justification for immediate and overwhelming retaliation. The holographic display shifted again, now showing the aftermath of the Thoria Prime operation. We've spent the last 3 weeks following up on the intelligence we captured from the Syndicate. 47 separate criminal operations across 12 sectors have been shut down. 6 slave trading rings eliminated, 13 piracy fleets captured or destroyed, and we've identified the location of their main base. Veltar stared at the data streaming across the display. In 3 weeks, the humans had accomplished what would normally take the Council years of investigation and coordination. Admiral, this is a complete reorganization of galactic security. Is it? Or is it just what happens when someone actually takes the Council's mutual defense treaties seriously? Admiral Chen returned to her seat and activated another display. Captain, I need you to take a message back to the Council leadership. The Syndicate's main fleet is planning to move within 6 months. Based on their target analysis, they're preparing to simultaneously strike 17 major worlds across the Outer Rim. The scope of the threat was staggering. 17 worlds represented nearly 1 billion innocent civilians, not to mention the economic disruption that would ripple throughout the galaxy. What does Earth propose we do about it? Earth proposes to stop them, completely, permanently. Admiral Chen's smile was the expression of a predator that had found its prey. But we're going to need the Council's official authorization for what we have in mind. What kind of authorization? The kind that lets us bring our entire fleet to the party. Veltar's bioelectrical field sparked with alarm. Your entire fleet? Admiral, how many ships are we talking about? Currently active, about 12,000 vessels. In reserve, another 8,000. Under construction? She paused, apparently calculating. Let's call it enough. The number was so far beyond anything the galactic community had imagined that Veltar couldn't immediately process it. 20,000 ships? Most Council member species had fleets numbered in the dozens or hundreds at most. Admiral, with respect, why does humanity need so many military vessels? The galaxy has been at peace for centuries. Has it, Captain? Or have most species just been too isolated to notice the threats? Admiral Chen gestured toward the display showing the Syndicate's operations. Peace isn't the absence of conflict, Captain. Peace is what happens when good people are prepared to fight for it. She stood and moved toward the exit, then paused. Captain Veltar, I want you to think carefully about something. 3 weeks ago, your people asked us for help protecting 50 million civilians. We sent a battle group. Now we're asking for your help protecting the entire galactic community. How do you think we should respond if the Council says no? The question hung in the air like a live plasma charge. Veltar realized that Admiral Chen wasn't just requesting authorization, she was warning him. Whether the Council approved or not, humanity was going to deal with the Syndicate threat. The only question was whether they would do it as part of a coordinated galactic response or as an independent human operation. I'll deliver your message, Admiral, and I'll recommend that the Council approve your request. I hope they do, Captain, because the alternative is humanity acting alone. And based on what we've learned about the Syndicate's operations, we'd probably end up reorganizing half the galaxy's security infrastructure without asking permission first. She paused at the doorway. We really prefer to work with others, Captain, but we won't let that preference stop us from protecting innocent people. As Veltar prepared to return to Council space, he reflected on the profound change that had occurred in galactic politics. 3 weeks ago, humanity had been provisional members of the Council, largely ignored by the major powers and considered interesting but irrelevant newcomers. Now, they were effectively the galaxy's primary military force, whether the Council acknowledged it or not. The Thorians had asked for help against 30 raiders. In response, they had accidentally awakened a sleeping giant that had spent 15 years quietly building the largest military force in galactic history. A force dedicated not to conquest or expansion, but to the protection of innocent life. As his shuttle departed Earth orbit, Veltar sent a priority message to the Council leadership on Centros Prime. The message was simple but urgent. Humanity has been approved for full Council membership, effective immediately. They have also been granted authority to coordinate all galactic security operations. This is not a request for discussion. This is a statement of reality. 2 months later, when the human fleet, all 20,000 ships of it, eliminated the Syndicate threat in a coordinated operation spanning 17 star systems, the rest of the galactic community finally understood what Captain Veltar had learned that day aboard the orbital station. When humans said they were there to help, they meant all of them. And they had been preparing for that responsibility much longer than anyone had realized. The Thorians had asked for help. They got a galactic guardian that would reshape the meaning of civilization among the stars. And throughout the galaxy, the lesson was clear. When Earth's predators decide to protect someone, they don't send a ship. They send everything.